Welcome back to the S.E.M podcast. Jack Bryce and Zach Hewlett are here today hosting, and today we're joined by our friend Jeff Webb. Jeff, it's great to have you. What part of the world are you calling from tonight?
I live in Canada. I'm in British Columbia, right near the border, just above the Idaho Panhandle, a little town called Creston.
Very nice. Are you from there originally? I don't know if I asked you that before.
No, I'm from Canada originally, but not Creston. No,
Okay.
I was born in Alberta, much further north in Grand Prairie.
Okay, very cool. Well, we're grateful that you made some time for us tonight. Just to give you a recap of what we'll do with the podcast, we talk about life before the mission and your reaction of getting your call to serve in Scotland. Then we'll go over the mission and talk about life since you've come home from your mission. And then we'll go back through Scotland and reminisce and talk about areas, companions, and all the in between. So I'll turn the time to you, Jeff, and you have the floor, my friend.
So you want to know about life before the mission to start? Okay. Well, let's see. I left on my mission. It was April 2002. So before that, I wasn't a member of the church for very long. I was a convert. The first time I actually met the missionaries, I'm trying to think what year that would have been. So I joined in 2000. On my birthday, I wanted to make it easy to remember. So my birthday was coming up. I said, let's baptize me on the 10th of August, so I'll always remember.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I had met them at least 2 or 3 years prior to that, but I was walking down the street and going to work, and the elders were calling me, and I turned around and I thought, do I know these guys?
Okay.
So I walked back, and then I realized they were missionaries, and I thought, oh, great. I ended up, I chatted with them, and I didn't want to say no. I kind of did, but I was like, oh, sure, you can come to my house and teach me more. I have to get to work. And so they did, and my parents walked in when they were giving me like a first discussion, and I got really embarrassed. A lot of my mom's side is Jehovah's Witness, so they've had like a lot of religion try to be like pushed on them.
Yeah, interesting.
So they're like, oh, interesting. They didn't really care. They were just a little surprised. And after that, I didn't meet with them. But I did have friends that were in the church. Now, I didn't really know anything about the church, to be honest. Although I do remember the commercials. That was like all I knew about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is they had cute family commercials. Ironically enough, the church itself was actually, if I went out my backyard, it was kitty corner across the street, and I still had no idea that was the church. So I didn't pay that close attention. But I had friends that were on a swim team with me, and they ended up sharing it with me. And I met with the missionaries, and this was back when they would have booklets, and they would just read right out of a booklet, telling me like the discussion, and then they would look up and they say, how does that make you feel? And I'd be like, I don't know.
Oh, man.
I don't feel anything. So, because they're telling me about, I'd never heard of the Book of Mormon, I'd never heard of Joseph Smith, and I was like, I don't know. And they did share with me, the promise that Moroni gave about praying. So I was at work, and I was like, well, if the church is true, I should join, because if it is God's church, I'd be stupid not to join. But if it's not true, then I'm just going to keep living my life as I've been living it, and we'll go from there. So on my break, I was by myself. I was a sandblaster, so I was dirty, the lunchroom was upstairs. I was sitting in a chair that was ripped out of a van. And I was like, well, I should just pray and ask, and I'll get my answer one way or the other. And so I just prayed to know if the book was true and if Joseph was a prophet, Joseph Smith. And I hadn't even read the book, but I didn't feel I needed to. I could be told if it was true or not without reading it. And I instantly got flooded with heat, and I started to cry, and I was like, why am I crying over a guy in a book? So I figured something was real there. So I was like, okay. And I felt really light. And unfortunately, I had to go back to work and finish my shift before I could tell anyone. And I rode I didn't have a car at the time, so I rode my bike to my friend's house, and I shared the experience. And right away, his mom told me, she said, never forget that. Always remember that feeling you had, every little detail of that experience, so that anytime you feel your faith is in question, you can recall that. And that was the best advice I ever had, because there's a few times where I was kind of, and then I thought, no, I've gotten an answer. Don't throw that away. So it's kept me strong. So at that time, though, I'd already served. Okay, so yeah, then I told the elders, and I was like, okay, I want to be baptized. So like before the second discussion even started, and I said my birthday's in like, I think it was like a week or something, and I was like, I want to be baptized then. And they're like, oh, so they're trying to plan how to finish off all the discussions and get my interviews, and they were really excited. To me, I just thought this is what happened with everyone. No.
and then you learned otherwise later, right?
But yeah, and so I had, I'm trying to remember. So that was in 2000, and I think, yeah, I'd already done a year of college. Had I? Yeah. And so I did another year, and everyone kept asking, like, are you going to serve a mission? And I was like, no. Like, I'm not. I know I'm going to university. I'm in college. It's transfer to university. No, I'm not. And then eventually, like, I did transfer. I went to Edmonton to continue doing my degree, and I waited, and I was like, what's going on? It's like already into September, and I haven't heard anything from the U of A. And then they call me, and they're like, hi, just want to let you know we have received your papers, and they were stamped received, but then they got lost. They're like, this like never happens, but we found them, but it's too late for you to join this semester. You'll have to join next semester. I was like, oh, okay, great. So at that time, I was just hanging out with the YSA, and almost every girl I met, they kept asking me if I'd serve a mission, and I was like, no, I'm pretty new. And they'd go, oh, okay, bye. And then they'd leave. But I did meet this one girl that I mentioned. I was like, well, I haven't served a mission, so you probably don't want to get too close to me. And she looked at me, and she's like, I know lots of returned missionaries who are absolute jerks. Serving a mission doesn't make you a better person, so I don't care. And I was like, oh. And right, just that one statement that she gave, it's like the wall came down, because I'd built it up. Everyone was like, you have to, you have to, you have to. I was like, no, I don't. It should be my choice. And so her giving me that option, saying I'm okay if I don't, actually made me want to. So then I just kept working, and I saved up. And by the time you want to know how? Okay, so I applied. I got my mission call, and none of my family are members. So I invited over my friend and his sister to here. And I didn't know the tradition. I didn't know you're supposed to just start and read and everyone finds out at the same time. So I read it to myself, and then I looked up and I was like, okay, guess where I'm going? And they're like, that's not how you do it. You're supposed to read it out loud to everyone. That's awesome. No one told me. So yeah, it was pretty cool. Everyone one of them thought, "Oh, I thought you'd be going to Japan." I was like, "I can't hardly speak French. I'm not going to learn Japanese." Scottish was hard enough going over there. So anyway, so yeah, I learned about it, and I hadn't saved up anything, and the bishop was like, "It's okay, we'll help take care of your mission fees," because my parents were like, "I'm not paying for you to go on a mission." So I was on my own, and I didn't have any money, so they helped me with that, and that was great.
That's amazing.
So yeah. And then,
so at this point, you're 2 years into the church, or just about, right? You said you got baptized in August.
It was, yeah. So it was a year and a half.
Okay.
Wait. So yeah, because it was April of 2002. So it was August of 2000. So then 2001 would have been a year, and then April. Yeah. So it was a year and a half that I went on my mission. Now I grew up Anglican, but what does that mean? Nothing. It means occasionally we might go to a Christmas mass. It had been forever.
Sure.
Wearing a suit every day and praying. Well, I was getting used to, but like teaching the gospel every day, like it was going from like standing still to like racing. And it was a big transition. It was hard for me to get used to.
Wow. That would be quite the transition. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
So April of 2002, did you return home April of 2004 then?
Yep, I did.
Okay. Well, let's skip over the mission and let's go to April of 2004. What has life led you through to that point? I mean, we're almost 20 years from that time. I'm sure you can't believe that.
Yeah, I remember being sad because I just missed I was able to see the first Lord of the Rings movie, and I just missed the third one, I think. Was it? Yeah. It just left theaters like a week after I got home, or a week before I got home. I was like, I was like, I can quickly catch up with the second one and go to the theaters. No, it's out. It's gone. So, but yeah, so I ended up meeting my wife in October. It was right before it was like the day I didn't go to it. It was the day after a Halloween dance. So I went somewhere else with a buddy of mine who wasn't a member. We went to watch like a movie or something. So we started dating. And then, I think it was in January, I proposed, and we were married by the following August. So we were married in August of 2005.
Awesome.
We've had 3 kids, but unfortunately, so her whole family's less active, and she had gone less active, and then she came back, and I had met her once she came back, and she told me, she's like, I knew something was missing, and I realized it was the gospel. So I really liked that. I was like, that's great. She's got a strong testimony. But as life progressed and where we ended up, Creston was where she grew up, and I ended up getting a job here. And I don't know if it was the influence of her family, because her dad is a little anti, and her sister definitely doesn't like the church. She's married to a guy who hates all religion. So there's some other complications too, but I never thought she would like lose her faith, but she did. She ended up like flirting with other guys, and she left me and the church, and now we're divorced, unfortunately. Like, that was 2 years ago. But so I could have gone 2 ways. Obviously, I could have been like, what's the point, and just spiraled. Or thankfully, I prayed for help, and basically, like, I felt broken, and I felt the weight lift off me, kind of like Heavenly Father was like, you're going through enough. Let me help you out here. Let me lighten your load. And I was able to find renewed faith and strength in the gospel. And with my kids. Like right now, my oldest is turning 17 this year. That's my son. My daughter is turning 15, and my youngest son is turning 12. And they definitely go to church when I make sure, even when they're staying with her, I'll go and pick them up and take them to church. Like I've asked her a couple times when I wasn't in town to take them, and she just doesn't. So I make sure they go. And I give them the option. They don't have to go, but I obviously I want them to, and I would say over 95% of the time they do, unless they're sick or just really not in the mood, which is fine, but they go enough, and just trying to be a positive role model for them in the gospel and just in life in general. So trying to make sure that they understand that I feel that what they think and feel matters, and I want their opinion. Like right now, they're at their mom's. We go 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. When they come back, actually, I was planning on discussing with them what we could do to do extra gospel things in the home, how they feel that I could do better as a parent, kind of like just a family discussion. I guess the same idea you'd have with like a companion on your mission, where you just, hey, what's bothering you?
It's a family inventory as opposed to
a
family inventory, right?
Right. So.
That's awesome. Good for you. I'm sure there's lots of challenges that come along with that, but I admire your continued faith and encouragement of your kids to continue to explore that, because it's such a weird time in their lives to try and figure out what's up and down and left and right, beyond the ideas of what is the hereafter and all the different spiritual things that come along with it as well. So
yeah.
Well, good. Well, come back to April of 2002, and you can start with your experience in the MTC, or you can go straight to the mission home in Edinburgh, whichever you'd like. But yeah, just carry on with your mission and your memories, areas you served in, companions you served with.
Well, I remember trying to, or thinking that I felt old, because I was like, elders normally leave when they're 19, and I was already halfway through being 21. I'm like, usually they're back by my age.
Sure.
And it was funny because, like, you know how Satan will try to like work on you. Like when I finally did put my papers in and I was getting ready, all of a sudden I had this strong urge that I needed to get married and have kids. And it doesn't sound like that would come from Satan, but the idea of like, you shouldn't serve a mission, you should be trying to start a family. And that was a weird thought to me. I was like, oh man, that means I won't be able to have kids for like another couple of years. And it was something that I kind of struggled with a bit, but I got through it, obviously, and realized what I needed to do. I'm the kind of person that once I start something, I like to see it through. So luckily I'd already made up my mind that I was going. But yeah, when I got, so the MTC, it was in England. I had a good time there. It was weird though, because like I said, the culture was, I still wasn't used to it,
Yeah.
And I was very much used to isolation because my siblings are both, like, my sister's 8 years older than me and my brother's 4.5 years older than me. So I had been living with just my parents and I since I was like 14. Okay. And my parents, lots of times, because I was the youngest and I was the last one and they trusted me as a teenager, they would go wherever. They'd go on vacation sometimes for like 2 weeks and just make sure the fridge was stocked and be like, okay, see ya. And I loved it. I was on a competitive swim team, so I kept busy doing that and school, and that's basically like my life. Swim, school, come home, relax, watch TV. So always being with a companion, I was like, oh, I just want to be alone. But that was tricky. there was some like really good memories in there. And unfortunately, I don't remember a lot of names. And I'll tell you, like, when I got home, I had all my missionary stuff, all my high school stuff, and earlier schools, like sports stuff, in this Rubbermaid bin, and there was a flood. I lived in a place with a crawl space,
no.
and normally the crawl space only got like an inch or two of water, but this flood happened overnight when we were sleeping, and when I looked in there in the morning, it had floated the bin and tipped it over, so the water got in there. So
Oh no.
everyone's address, everyone's names, all my paper clippings from my sports from 14 years of swimming, like any kind of like thing that I had won, or it was all ruined. Wedding stuff was in there. So I can't remember, like I have pictures in my photo album, but I can't remember most of their names.
We'll do the best to help you, Jeff.
Yeah. So I can't remember the elders from the MTC, because you're only there for a couple weeks, 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It was okay. They were much younger than me, and at that time the South Park movie had just come out, Blame Canada and A Boot. So I was getting that a lot, and I was like, oh, just leave me alone. So yeah, I was not enjoying that. That was kind of annoying. And I'll tell you as well, like my household was, if you want to be heard, you got to be louder. So, and there's a lot of like aggression. So I was like really holding back, punching some of those guys in the face, because like I didn't grow up in the gospel. Like gotta just calm down. I was like, I'm gonna get sent home here soon. So,
hey, some of us that grew up in the gospel had those same feelings, Jeff. So don't worry about yourself.
Okay.
It's just getting, like you said, getting used to being constantly attached to another man is a different thing altogether.
Yeah. Well, when I finally got out on my mission, my companion, I do remember my trainer. His name was Aaron Smith.
Okay.
He was from Canada. He was from Halifax. For sure. That's where he worked on the temple grounds. He was like a gardener there. So that was cool.
That's cool.
Very hard worker. He taught me a lot. It was really interesting. I like going. Hopefully, I don't know who's going to be watching this. If they can figure out who the second companion I had. Just I'll come back to Aaron, but the second companion I had was from England, and he only had like 6 weeks left, and he was like, He's like, so I went from like go doing everything. I was like, okay, this is how everyone does it, to like, well, whatever, we can like go over here and just relax and like. And I'm probably going to be giving away too much here, but like I had a few companions where we ended up like playing video games and watching movies at people's houses when we shouldn't have. So yeah, like breaking rules, but I was like, whatever, I'll just follow your lead. I was just glad to be on a mission. I was like, we should probably try to teach someone, which we did. We did teach.
Right.
I don't want to give away negative experiences, but sometimes I feel that when people get up and they talk about their missions, they're like, it's the best thing ever. We're always teaching. I'm like, I didn't always teach. Sometimes I had companions where we didn't even leave the place for the entire day. Sometimes we just hung out at less active people's houses all day and just like watched some shows and just hung out with them. I'm not proud of that, but it happened. So I'm wondering how many other missionaries did that. I'm like, maybe that's why my wife left me, because they're always like, however hard you work on your mission is how great your wife's gonna be. Yeah, I don't know. That old. I don't know if you guys ever heard that one, but I remember hearing that one when I was out there. But Aaron was great. Elder Smith, I guess, is what he was then. But he was very, very hard worker, and he taught me a lot. How to plan. Well, the one thing I got to say that I was not happy about is he he always liked to push right to the time, because at that time we didn't have cell phones. We had to be back in the flat to get the call, because the zone leaders are going to call you like at 9:00. And if you weren't there, they're like, where were you? Why weren't you in your flat? You're supposed to be home. And he would wait. I'm like, it's 8:45 and we're still knocking on doors. What if someone actually wants to have like a long conversation? We won't have time to get home. So yeah, that was one thing. So we'd like run a lot with full backpack, with some Mormon and like church shoes. I'm like, my knees, I blame that on my knees getting wrecked. So, but otherwise, yeah, it was a lot of good work. We had a lot of cool people in that area.
What area were you in?
Oh, I guess, yeah, sorry, that was Aberdeen was my first area.
Oh, nice.
And actually, it's funny, like the bishop and his family were from Calgary, Alberta. He worked with oil. So that was
the Pains,
cool.
right?
No, wait, it was, no.
Was Chris Payne?
Mm-mm.
I know he's Canadian.
Trying to,
I know you're a little bit older than me, Jeff, so it could be another one of those.
Well, he left while I was there. They ended up going home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they went home only a couple months after I was there. I think it was like 3 months later. They ended up leaving.
Okay. Then I've misspoken.
Like, I do remember like one of his daughters, Jenna, once they left, she started writing me letters. I was like, oh, nice. So that was okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Made an impression. I like it.
Yeah, apparently. So I'm trying to think. I ended up serving in 6 different areas there. My next one, I ended up going to Greenock. That was an interesting area because it was a ward, and then down the coast was a branch, and then across on an island was another branch. But when I got there, both branches had shut down, and the ward had shrunk to about maybe 8 to 12 active members. So it was like a full ward building with just a few people. I've never seen such a small congregation. So there was us as missionaries, and then there was a senior missionary couple as well. And the guy that was the bishop, he told me, he's like, I was baptized, and about a week later they called me as bishop. And I've been bishop ever since. And it was something like 4 or 5 years, because there was like no other men in the ward that could be a bishop.
Wow.
So yeah, that was an interesting area. It's been so long since I've thought about some of these places. I don't know what kind of stories you're like looking for.
Whatever you feel like sharing.
Whatever I feel like sharing. I think, honestly, I wanted to talk about like the coolest interaction I had, I guess, with someone that we taught was a refugee from Turkey. And her name was, I remember her name because it was very unique. It was Gulahan Bulbul. So Bulbul. I was like, that's a fun name. And so my companion and I were looking over old records. And we're like, well, let's look at some of the people that have been taught and just try to recontact them, see if they want to still continue. Mm-hmm. And we went to this one high rise to see if we could find this guy. And this lady was in the elevator with her 2 sons. And she's like, you're here to see me? And we're like, I don't think so. What's your name? And she said, and we're like, no, we're going to go see this person, but where do you stay? Maybe we can visit you on the way back. She's okay. So she gave us her apartment number, and we went up there, and the guy wasn't there. So we thought, well, let's just stop back. And one of her sons was like 12. The other one, I think, was 7 or 8. She spoke very choppy English, but her 12-year-old was fluent. And the youngest didn't speak English like at all. But we ended up teaching her, and her oldest would translate, and it was great because we'd be teaching gospel principles, and she would not quite understand, and she would say it one way, and he'd say, no, like this, and you'd like, explain it, and it's like, this is great. He is like being taught and teaching. This kid is going to like memorize all of this stuff.
That's cool.
And we were able to get her a Book of Mormon in Turkish, and she flew right through it. And she wanted to be baptized, but they didn't have status yet. They were still waiting. They were refugees, so they didn't know if they'd be sent back or not. So she wanted to be baptized, but she didn't want her oldest, even though he wanted to be baptized. She was like, if we get sent back, it could be very dangerous for him to be a Christian, because she's like, we're Muslim, but we don't read the Quran. And I was like, I didn't realize there were some that didn't read the Quran. She's like, yeah, we don't. Okay. And it was really like in her interview with was it the bishop that does the interview? I'm trying to remember. I think so.
District leader.
Yeah. They kept, well, I think we also had like the bishop do it too, because she was a refugee. Because we did have like district leaders or zone leaders or something. Because I think I was a district leader at that point, and we had a zone leader do it, and then the bishop wanted to, because he was like, well, she was Muslim, I got it. And so he must have asked her like half a dozen times. He's like, so you believe in Christ? Yes. You believe that he's the Son of God? Yes. Like the Savior, like he's our God. Yes. And she's, yes, I understand. Yes, I believe. He's like, I know it's true.
Oh man.
So yeah, it was great. So I got to baptize her, and unfortunately the heater had broke, so the water was freezing in the front. And I think it was her. The first time she went down, her dress came up a little. So I had to dunk her twice. Like, tuck that dress between your legs so that it doesn't float up. So yeah, we got her baptized, and she started, taking the new member discussions. But then I got transferred. I think that was in Glasgow, by the way, one of the areas near Glasgow. But I remember hearing that she had been denied, and her sons had to get sent back to Turkey. Oh, and I haven't heard from her ever again. I have no idea what happened to them. So she's been on my mind constantly ever since I left my mission, or even since I heard that. I was like, oh, how do I contact her? I have no idea how. So if anyone knows her, that was a fun, interesting time, was getting to know her and getting to eat some of her food. I did feel bad because, they say anything they give you, you just eat. And, I took that to heart when I was on my mission. You eat it and you eat it all. So that's why I gained like 40 pounds. But she gave us this one drink, and it was so gross. It was like water and plain yogurt or something like that, and it just was like I almost wanted to puke. And her sons were just like drinking it like it was the best thing in the world. But both me and my companion were like, no. Like, you don't like it? We're like, no. It's the only thing I ever said no to on the mission. Everything else, the food was fantastic, but that one drink was just gross. I tried. I mean, I even had a lady that would always cook us. She was a senior in my first area, and she had us over like every week, and she'd always cook the same thing. It was like a pizza with like fish and chips on it and Brussels sprouts, and then she'd put like salt and vinegar on the pizza.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, that's Scottish way, right? So I remember like, well, I'm not crazy about Brussels sprouts, but if there's enough salt and vinegar on them, I guess I can choke that down. So, yeah, having the chips on there was actually pretty good. I like that, but yeah.
It was a whole meal in a slice of pizza, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I did like haggis though. I got to tell you, I don't know. Did you guys enjoy haggis?
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's like, oh no, it's gross. I still have a friend from Scotland. I met her in my first area. She was a member of the ward. And she ended up going on a mission, but she had to come home due to health complications. She's in the States right now. And we just recently, like, she found me on Instagram, I think. And I was chatting with her and I told her how much I loved haggis. And she was like, oh, no, haggis is gross. I'm like, you're Scottish. She's like, oh. That's weird. I love haggis. So, yeah.
It's definitely how it's prepared. You know, the stuff from the can is whatever. It is. It's
I never had the can.
Oh, it's not the same as when they actually do it the proper way, like on a burn supper night. You know,
yeah.
it's a little bit. It's
Like
much different.
Frozen haggis from Little is not the same.
That's right.
I mean, I went and bought
haggis pasty is not the same either.
I bought one that was like already pre-made at a butcher's or something like that. And when I brought it home, I also had like some wraps, like burrito wraps. So I made like burritos with it. Was good. It was like spicy burritos.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So
I got my family to eat it when we went back by getting it from a chippy deep fried. And that was pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah, and I do miss that. I miss all the fish and chips. Anywhere you went, there was this fish and chips fresh. And another reason why I gained so much weight is everything's deep fried. Did you guys ever try the deep fried Mars bar?
Oh yeah. You had to.
Yeah, I did it. I did it once in my first area, and I was like, "That tastes great." And then 5 minutes later, I was like, "Oh my gosh, my stomach!" It was like a brick. Just like, ugh. It's like I don't know if I'm going to do that again. It was good, but
yes, indeed.
Jeff,
do you have any other memories of other companions that you served with besides your first companion?
Yeah, I had a really cool. I had lots of good companions. I did like. So yeah, there's a second companion from England. He was an easygoing, nice guy. Like I said, I can't remember names. My third one, unfortunately, that poor guy, he didn't want to be on a mission. He's like, my parents made me go, so he didn't want to do anything.
Oh man.
So we stayed inside a lot because I can't go out on my own. I finally convinced him to go out, and he was like, fine. So we left, and we're knocking on doors, and we got in, and we were teaching a guy, and I was trying to answer all the questions, but keep in mind, I hadn't even been a member for 2 years yet, and the only thing I'd ever read was the Book of Mormon once. I hadn't read the Bible. I hadn't read Doctrine and Covenants. I didn't study things. I couldn't recall scriptures, so all this stuff. So he's asking questions, and I'm not sure how to answer it. And I look over at him, and he just goes, and he refused to open his mouth. And I was like, well, what was that? He's like, well, you want me to answer a question on, and he had, because it was like a weird question, but it was like, well, yeah, we got to try to like answer some of his stuff. And
oh man.
And he refused. So I was like, what is the point? And I just remember, when I got transferred there, like the mission president was like, you're a new convert and you've got the spirit really strongly with you. I just know you can get this guy out. And I'm like, I don't know. I can't. I don't know what to do. So we like played a lot of games, a lot of board games. That was about it. I remember the bishop saying, because our flat was like where the road was, there's like a traffic circle right there, and our window, and he would just sit in the chair and like stare out the window, and the bishop would be like, so I saw Elder so and so, I can't remember, like sitting in the chair again. It's like trying.
We left to go to dinner. That's rough.
It was rough. But then the guy that came, so he was from the States, and then the next guy after him was from the States as well. So bad with names. It's forever ago. It's over 20 years, I guess I can give myself a break. But this guy was like tall. He was like 6'5". So I'm only 6 feet tall. He's bigger than me. But thankfully, he had a good work ethic because I think I'd spent like 3 months with that other guy. So that was rough. So I had lost my ability, I felt like, to like actually work. So this guy came in and he was like, no, let's work. And it was close to Christmas time, I remember. And we got out and did a bunch of teaching, and it was great. We taught a lot of people. We didn't have any baptisms in that area, but at least we were working. But I do have an experience with him it was an unfortunate one, but it is definitely one that stuck in my memory. So we were going to a dinner appointment, and there was this group of kids. And do you guys recall the term N.E.D.S? Did you ever use that term?
Oh yeah,
N.E.D.S?
Absolutely.
These were N.E.D.S. So they were young. I think the oldest one might have been like 13, and they were short. It's felt like a lot of Scottish people were short, but these kids were short. They came up, maybe like their head was like to my shoulders, and they knew we were elders because missionaries have been there forever, and so they were like trying to chat with us, and they were making fun of us, and they said some pretty rude things about the Savior, and I'm just trying to ignore them. And my companion looks and he's like, no, I think that's your mom. And I was like, I laughed. I couldn't believe he said that, but I was like, woo-hoo. And then they left. They're like, oh, good riddance, kind of, should love everyone, but I had trouble with that. But then they came back with like rocks, and I was like, uh-oh. So they started like chucking them at us, and we kind of lost them. And then we were able to get into this dinner appointment. Well, it was like a week later, we had an appointment to go teach this guy, and we went to his apartment complex, and there was like probably 4 buildings in this one area, and he was up in the middle. And we got to the entrance to walk in and get to his building. And this is, keep in mind, this is like a distance away. I can't think in miles, but it was something like 3 or 4 kilometers, so which is a couple miles, 2 to 3 miles distance. These kids lived in that area. So they confronted us, and one of them pulled out a knife, and I'm just thinking like, because I told you I had a bit of a temper, and I was just like, I can't believe I'm being threatened by kids. If it wasn't for this badge, I would put you on the ground, because they were just so small. And but we walked past them, and they're like, oh my gosh. And they started like throwing rocks at us, and they just, it's like, they play soccer, so they don't know how to throw anything. They don't use their hands.
So true.
Everything's going wide, and I'm like, I just feel like kind of sticking them with something. So I was like, yeah, you throw like a bunch of girls, and I shouldn't have, because I think Heavenly Father was like, nah, you're on your own. Because all of a sudden their aim got much better, and I got hit a couple times. I was like, oh man, should have kept my mouth shut. And my companion was like, because like our appointment was right there, and he's like, we can't go in there. We can't lead them to where he lives, and then we'll be trapped. So we kept walking. But while this is happening, it's like all the other kids are like magnetized to this, and like, well, that looks like fun. They're throwing rocks at people. So the little group built, and all of a sudden rocks are being thrown by everyone. And it must have been like, it started off with about 4 kids. It ended up being like 15 to 20 of them. And we're like kind of picking up our pace. Thankfully, we're much taller than them. And we're going down a bank to a road. And I remember thinking that was a little blessing. I looked down to see where I was going. And when I looked back up to see what was happening, a bottle went right past my nose and smashed on the curb. I was like, I came this close to getting a bottle like right in the head. And we got down, and we walked around a corner. And as soon as they were like out of sight, that's when we ran. I was like, I can't believe I'm running from a bunch of kids, but I have to. It was really it was unfortunate. It was such a good lesson. I remember teaching it to some youth later on, and I was like, how could have all of that been avoided? By not making fun of someone's mom. Like keeping your mouth shut. Had we just been like, hey guys, that's not a very nice thing to say about the Savior. I mean, it's Jesus Christ. You should show more respect. Something like that. Maybe had we seen them the second time, they would have not cared, or they would have been like, hey, and that would have been it. So there are consequences to all our actions and all the things we say. You just don't know when those consequences are coming.
Oh man, what a story.
Yeah.
What other areas did you serve in?
Falkirk, Dundee. You know what? Do you mind if I just get up really quick? I have my photo album. I remember cutting it out and I circled all the areas and I put 1, 2, so because I knew I'd forget. So can I quickly run and grab it?
Yeah, of course.
Man. Somehow I feel like we've heard your companion side of that story.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember who it was.
I remember being in my first area too, and there was a thing at the time called the Jesus Revolution. And there basically like a church came over from the States because the Pope had said that Scotland was the most what did he say? I can't remember the exact words, but basically like the most rebellious or the least religious country or something like that. Basically, it was just going downhill in his words or something. So this group came over and they set up in Aberdeen, and my zone leaders went there to check it out in their P-Day clothes. And they're like, yeah, we sat in there, and basically they would just be like, praise Jesus, and everyone yelled at them. They'd just like playing their guitars and banging on the drums, and then they'd go and like they had a skate park set up. It was like they weren't teaching anything. They're just trying to get kids there to like basically just say they love Jesus without teaching them anything and entice them with like skate park rules. And they were handing out like tons of anti-Mormon stuff. And I remember finding out like we had a sister. I think it was Sherry Smith. Was it? I remember. Yeah, I think so. Sister Smith, I think. So bad with names. Anyways, she was from a little Utah town that had like 800 people in it. It's like everyone was a member, she said. And she had never once heard anyone speak poorly about Prophet Joseph Smith. And they were like just bad mouthing him. And I guess she cried. Like she was tearful. And this guy was like laughing that he's like, yeah, I made one of them cry. And I was so angry about that. But it was great because the authorities actually went there and started like questioning them, and they didn't have any kind of permit to set up and do what they were doing. So they were like forced to take everything down and go back to the States. So, wow. Yeah. So let's see. I got, okay. So yeah, Aberdeen was first, then Greenock, then I went to Dundee, then Falkirk, and then a huge area of like, all right, then, sorry, just around Glasgow. It's a small little area, but then my last area was like Dumbarton all the way up to Oban. So,
okay.
I didn't get to serve on any islands, but I don't know. Did you guys ever get to serve on any of the islands? Because I thought that would have been kind of fun.
I did, and you weren't missing too much.
I do remember there was this brother from France, and he was big. He was like just built like a brick, and he was on a bus. And if you guys recall, everyone smoked everywhere, including on buses.
Yeah.
And he was on the bus, and I guess he told this guy, he was like, "Put out your cigarette," and the guy was like, "No." And he headbutted him and knocked him out and put out a cigarette. And he told the mission president what he did, and I guess the mission president just kind of laughed and was like, "Well, I mean, you shouldn't do that." And so he sent him to the Shetland Islands.
So I tracked down who it was that was your companion in that rock fight. It was Chad Van Leuven.
That's right. Yes.
He told that story. He's been on our podcast, so you'll have to go back
gosh.
and watch that one because that was a memorable story for Jack and I. We were both laughing our heads off. Like
I knew I'd heard the other
that's
side of it.
Yeah. When you said that he said, "No, that's your mom," I was like, we've heard that story before. We had to track it down. So go back and listen to that. You'll get a kick out of it, Jeff.
Oh man, yeah. Which one was that? Like, how long ago was that? Because I need to see that.
I'll look it up.
That's too funny.
No, it was a great story, and like I said, you'll appreciate it all the more because you had first witness of it.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing his side of it as well, like his point of view. That's too funny. It's been so long.
His episode is episode 116 on our podcast list.
Okay, I'll remember that. Which episode is this?
You're 148.
Okay, 116. Yeah. Trying to think if there's any other good stories. I did have a lot of, I'm sure you got this too. Just, I guess people are just so sick of seeing missionaries all the time that I remember being with my trainer and they had hedges. This one house had there's a thin little path and hedges on both sides. And we went up to the door and we knocked on it, and this little old lady answered. Well, I mean, I don't know how old, maybe like in her mid 60s, but she sees us and she just, "Effing Norman." And I was like, "Whoa, it's get away from me, just get out of here." And we're like, okay, just say you're not interested. So we turn around to leave and we're walking down this path. And just at that moment, her husband pulled up in the car and he gets out and he's at the other end and he starts swearing at us. And we're like, can we leave? Like, just just berating us. It was so like, you look back and it's funny, but then I'm just like, I can't believe like so many people hate this because like it seems so natural to just join the church. It's like, why isn't everyone joining this church?
Oh man.
But, or you know, they teach you different things to say when you knock on a door, and one of them is like, "Hi, you know, you introduce yourself from the Church Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, just sharing a message about Christ." And then you could say something like, "Are you very religious?" And I remember saying that one to this guy, and he goes, "What do you think?" And he's holding his shirt, and then he slams the door, and I look over and I was like, what is
Rangers or Celtic?
I was gonna say that's exactly it.
It was Celtic. And I was like, I don't get it. And my companion's like, he's a Celtic fan, he's Catholic. I'm like, huh? What are you talking about? That's how I learned about that. I ended up becoming a Rangers fan.
So you're a Protestant. How about that?
Yeah. That's it. I like the color blue.
Fair. I like it.
Yeah. So
another thing we ask people on here is any particular memories you have with the mission presidents, their wives, memories of them.
Oh man, I don't know about you, but I can't remember which president's wife it was, or if it was just like what they all did. But whenever it was definitely like my first one. Yeah, my first mission president's wife would, for your birthday, would make cookies about this big. Do you guys get that?
Yeah.
Was that just a thing that every mission president's wife did? Because
Sister Black in the mission home actually made those cookies. We found out.
Oh, it wasn't okay. I thought it was like the wife. So I was like, that's amazing. those.
Well, they came from the mission president's wife.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Sister Wilkinson and Sister Vreens took full advantage of Sister Black's work. So thank you, Sister Black.
Yeah. Sure. And I can't remember. I can't remember the names of the mission presidents that I had, but I was lucky enough that I had one for a full year, and then he left because they have like a 3-year service, right?
Yeah, you started with the Wilkinsons.
That's it.
With the Vreens.
Okay, thanks. You remembered. So yeah, and I remember thinking how like they definitely had different teaching styles, but how much I appreciated both of them. Like Wilkins, President Wilkins was very, he not strict, but he was firm. He was a firm guy, and I felt more like who was the second one? Sorry, President
Brains.
He was, he was firm too, but he felt more like a grandpa. Like it's someone that you could like relax with, and I loved both for the various reasons, because their teaching styles were just so different, but both were equally effective. So it was a real blessing to be able to learn from both of them and learn the different styles, so that it helps in whatever situation you might be in, depending on who responds to what in what manner. So yeah. I don't have a whole lot of memories with them because I didn't see them very often, unfortunately. I never got to serve in the mission home at all. But
yeah, Zach and I are in that same boat. We didn't serve in Edinburgh or in the mission home or anything, but yeah.
I did love seeing the military tattoo. That was fantastic.
That is a great tradition.
One of the highlights for sure. It's so cool.
We've heard since the mission is merged that they don't do that anymore. So for those of us that served in the S.E.M, we got really fortunate that was our cultural experience every year.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that too, I remember. So was it Burns Night when they do all the fireworks? Is that what
Guy Fawkes?
Guy Fawkes. I knew. Yeah, I couldn't remember the name. But I think they've since banned fireworks. But when I was there, anyone could buy them, and they were everywhere. And I remember people setting off fireworks in the middle of the street, and instead of going up, they would go like down the street. It was hilarious, scary, but you would like wake
up. Pretty wild.
And yeah, you just hear bang, bang, like all the time for days, and you can just smell the sulfur in the air. But one of the coolest memories I have, and I wish I could like remember it vividly, but I just remember the feeling of how crazy it was to see. But we were at a dinner appointment, and the members were in a high rise, and they were near the top level. And I went out onto their balcony, and I just looked all the way left, and I just scanned all the way, and it was like a war zone. It's like constantly, and I was like, "This is unbelievable! Like, this is the best fireworks show I've ever had in my life." So I do miss that. But then I remember hearing it was like a couple of years later. I think I'd already gotten home that they had banned it, that they didn't allow people to just buy fireworks anymore like that.
No, we definitely had the same experience as you, Zach.
When did you guys serve?
Fireworks everywhere.
Yeah.
I served 2004 to 2006. So you and I actually overlapped probably by a few months.
Yeah.
And then Jack trained me from January 05 to January 07.
Oh, no kidding. Okay. Nice. Yeah.
But we can confirm that there were fireworks. Guy Fawkes and I, didn't matter. Yeah, there was no preventing that. It didn't even have to be fireworks. They'd just go set a pile of crud on fire in the middle of the street, and fire engines all night long. It was unreal.
Well, and speaking of that, and I have pictures of it. I was shocked. Like in my second area in Greenock, this is where I learned this. I I just finished eating something, and I'm looking around, and I asked my companion, I'm like, where's the garbage can? And he's like, just throw it on the ground. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, throw it on the ground. I was like, I can't do that. He's like, people are paid to pick it up. He said, I had the same question, and I asked a police officer, and that's what they told me. Just throw it on the ground. People will pick it up. Because so all the N.E.D.S are starting the garbage cans on fire, so they just removed the garbage cans. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. But there was a street in Greenock that it was like landmines. It was just like styrofoam chippy, containers or Indian food, curry, whatever. And they were just like dropped. Still some food in them, and just like all over the street. I'm like, I don't think they hired enough people. Like no one's going to be able to pick up all of this. This is ridiculous. So, I mean, I don't know if you guys noticed that, but it seemed like just backwards. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I found him. I found Elder. Which you said Van Leuven? Yeah.
Yeah, Chad.
Yeah.
There's some of the things here.
One of the other companions I came across that we've interviewed is from your time in Dundee was Alec Gilmore.
Yes. Yeah. I was in a tripanionship with him, if you will. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I remember he's half Scottish and half Navajo.
That's right.
Yeah. He had the coolest. He had a flag, like an American flag, and it was American flag, but superimposed on it was like a native warrior on a stallion that was jumping. It was like it looked really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I have some fun memories with him too, and I think if he remembers, I hope not. I remember kind of like not losing my cool, but getting very frustrated with this one guy that we were talking to, and like, it's okay, you could have just let that go. I was like, just wouldn't answer the question. He was getting so frustrated. Or no, he was like, because he'd call us Mormons, and we were told, to explain that was just a nickname, and we're from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And this one guy at the door was like, "Nah, I'm pretty sure you've always been called Mormons." He's like, "That's not true. You were always Mormons." And I was just getting so annoyed. And I wish if I could give my younger self any kind of advice, it'd be like, just ignore them. Anytime there's any kind of confrontation, just say, "Okay, have a nice day," and leave. But being an arrogant youth, I just want to like get in either the last word or prove myself right. And it's like, that doesn't work. You can't do that. So,
was your trio mate Hunter Franks? Does that ring a bell?
Yes, it was.
Look at us. We're pulling them out. I love
all
it.
this down because I have all their pictures, and I'm like, I recognize you.
I love it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Hunter, he had like a Texan, not a Texan accent. He had something like Midwestern. I don't know. I don't know where all the accents are from, but it was like a cowboy accent. He was a pretty cool guy. Yeah, I like serving with both those guys. I think it was with them actually. We were having a Christmas dinner, and the people we were with, the wife was a crosswalk guard, and she had some sparkling wine or whatever, like it's supposed to be like non-alcoholic. Well, I'm drinking it because she got a gift. It was from like one of the kids, and I'm drinking it, and I'm like, can I see that bottle? Because
No.
I drank alcohol before I joined the church. And they're like, yeah, sure. And it's 5% alcohol, and we're all drinking it at the table. And I'm like, this is alcoholic. And I think it was Elder Gilmore. He's like, oh no, it tastes so good though. Because he didn't want to stop drinking it.
That's amazing.
So yeah, they're like, oh, we're so sorry. I'm like, Just because if I wouldn't have noticed it, it's like, would we have gotten drunk? I don't know, but I could tell. I was like, this tastes familiar.
You would have slept
Gilmore,
really well that night. I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
Gilmore's episode 49, if you want to watch that one too.
I gotta write all these down. Yeah, let's make a note of. So 49 and 116, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna make a note of that.
Sorry, we don't have more of your companions on that I have reference of that I could just keep slinging them. But I'm glad we got a couple of them down here. It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's cool. That's what a small world, I guess. Hey, and that's great because it's funny because I was trying to think like, how do I contact anyone that's been in the mission that I served with? So
the other person that you might be familiar with from your MTC group that we've interviewed is Charlie Alger. If you remember Elder Alger.
It sounds familiar. What does he look like?
He's a handsome lad from the state of Colorado. Lives in Utah now.
I should.
Big white guy.
I know Charlie will listen to this, and if I say anything else, he'll send me a message and be irate that I said something bad about him.
Well, I'm wondering because I do remember there was, and I can't remember if it's him or not, but there was one elder that I got along with really well, and I'm just going to see if I have his. I know I have his picture here, and
the people that he remembered from your MTC group were Monty Annika, McKay Miller, Toby Gibbs, and Ben West. If any of those ring a bell.
I don't know.
In our documentation of MTC groups that we have.
What was his name?
Charlie Alger.
Okay. No, I do have. I'm just looking. I managed to get some names. So I guess Elder Johnson was my MTC companion, and Elder Martin he was from the States. He and I got along really well.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. So
did they both go to Scotland as well?
No, Elder Johnson ended up going to Ireland.
Okay.
And he was telling me how much he could only pack, like so much. It was so little that he could take because of that plane. So and Elder Martin, I'm trying to remember if he ended up serving in England though. I can't recall because I don't think I saw him after that. But I have their names written down, so good for me.
There you go. Very good.
I've done that with everyone else. Trying to think if there's anything else. Like there were some other like there was one lady that I think my companion baptized. She was elderly, and so was her husband were, like they both were, and she was learning, and she really wanted to be baptized, but she was having trouble smoking, and she even had like a little oxygen machine, I think, and she asked for a blessing, and so my companion gave the blessing, and she was able to quit, like, and she didn't need her tank anymore either. It was like one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Wow.
So yeah, she's like, I don't have a craving for cigarettes anymore, and I feel fine. I haven't needed my tank, and so we continued teaching her, and then eventually she did get baptized. And I can't recall what her name was, but that was a great story. Yeah. Usually you learn lessons through failure, and as a new member, I failed a lot. So there was this one time, like the very first time I'd ever given a blessing for healing. I'd given one of comfort before this, but giving one for healing I'd never done before. And I mean, the concept of giving a blessing was very new to me, because
sure,
so I was like, okay, I'd witnessed it. I'd never done it, but I was the district leader, and I had a senior. There was a senior sisters that were companions, and one of them had an issue with her foot. And I remember her looking at me saying, "I want you to heal my foot." And I was like,
Whoa.
in my head, I'm like, is that how this works?
Faith
I was like,
precedes the miracle, I suppose.
okay. So I'm giving her a blessing, and I did not have the inspiration to say that, but I said it anyways. My inspiration was to say, Heavenly Father has given medical professionals training, and they're here to help you. And I felt like she should go and see them. But in my head, I'm like, she told me to say that her foot will be healed. So I did. I said what she wanted. And I think maybe we both learned a lesson there. Ever since then, I've always just allowed the words to flow out of my mouth, not really like thinking, but not like making them my own. And maybe she learns to, if you ask for what you want, you might not get exactly what you've asked for. I don't know what kind of lessons she learned, but I remember her companion looking at me with this look. It's like she knew that I said the words that I shouldn't have, and I felt ashamed. So it was a strong lesson for me to follow the Spirit. But step by step, precept by precept. So yeah. I don't think there's anything else. There's got to be lots. I'll probably come up with like a dozen stories after we stop talking. But
here's our invitation to you, Jeff. As those memories start coming, write them down, and we can always have a part 2 episode where we can go through your other memories. And if you come across companions and people that you remember, we would love to have you on again if that's what we need to do, because ultimately we've covered a lot tonight. I mean, I'm sure you never sat down with what you thought was limited memories, and we've spoken for well over an hour now, and it's been a lot of fun. So really, thank you for your time and coming on tonight. It's been great.
And when you listen to Gilmore and Van Leuven, that'll get you even more.
That's right.
Oh, probably, yeah. And I think one of the main blessings I found serving in Scotland, because here in Creston, we always ask, where are you guys from? And it's always the same. Utah, 95% of the time. Maybe it's like a neighboring state, but it's that. Maybe we'll get a Canadian, very rarely. But, serving there, we served with so many different people from different countries, like Ghana, South Africa, France, Italy, Finland. Actually, the elder from Finland, he's like, "Do you know why Finnish women are so beautiful?" And I said, "Why?" I was like, "I don't know." He goes, "Because my ancestors came here and stole all the pretty girls." I was like, "Well, I guess you're not wrong."
Oh man,
yeah,
that's classic.
Yeah, I remember like serving with one sister that was from France, and she was just a spitfire. And we've reconnected on Facebook. Her name was Sister Darlene de la Derriere, and she was like just short, and you didn't want to mess with her though. Like, she had so much energy and spunk, and she her and her companion, Sherry Stevens, that's who it was, not Smith, Sherry Stevens. She and Sister D, we just call her because her name was so long. Because I was still with Aaron Smith, and because we were both Canadian, Canada Day was July 1st, and they showed up to our apartment with like I can't remember, they had like a cake or I have a picture of it somewhere, like stack of pancakes or something, like Happy Canada Day, and they had like flags, and I don't know where they got them from, but they had like, I think they had like maple leaf hats. Like, it was so
wow.
funny. And it was just like, what a thoughtful thing to do. to do for us. So it was a good memory. And anyways,
that's cool.
yeah.
Well, Jeff, just to kind of wrap us up here a little bit tonight, like I said, as the memories keep flowing, send me a message and we'll certainly figure it out.
Sure.
But we just want to express to you our love as our brother in Scotland. I mean, you came on to this, you didn't know Jack and I from Adam, but we shared some great memories of wonderful places that we love in Scotland, and we got to serve in that magical land. And just know that you have a great extension of brotherhood and sisterhood from serving in that land. So again, we love you and are grateful for your service there in that country.
Well, thanks. And I really appreciate you guys reaching out to do this. And it's what a wonderful thing that you guys are doing to help elders and sisters, relive some old memories and maybe even like reconnect with old friends. So yeah, thanks.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When this gets published, if anybody asks for your contact information, I'll just push them straight to you, just so you know. So
perfect. Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. Well, good.
All right.
Well, Jeff, again, we appreciate you. We will certainly be in touch more soon, but we'll say cheerio to you tonight, and we'll talk again. All right.
All right. See you guys.
All right. Cheerio, Jeff. Bye-bye.
Bye.